This video is going to be a little bit different from my usual content. It is actually a requested video that someone asked me to make when they saw that I had been traveling to Japan. I have been to Japan 10 times now. I just got back from my 10th trip. I go there as a tourist and to visit my sister who lives there. And in this video, I'm going to give you my 5 tips for visiting Japan. Just keep in mind that I am giving these tips from a perspective of a South African tourist visiting Japan. I am not an expert on Japanese culture or Japanese language, but I do think that over the years traveling to Japan, I have developed a couple of rules for myself that have made my life easier and hopefully can make your life easier if you're planning to visit Japan in the near future. Welcome to Roughing It with Ruth, the channel where everything is a bit rough around the edges. My first tip when visiting Japan is that there is a lot of stuff to do there. There's tons of natural attractions, cultural attractions, historic attractions, museums, art galleries, and my advice would be to not try to do it all. Do some research on the area that you're going to be going to or the area you want to go to, and find 1 or 2 things that you really want to do and make sure that you do those things. And then leave the rest of your itinerary a little bit more open, because once you actually get to Japan, you are almost certainly going to come across activities or events or places that you want to go to on a more spur of the moment fashion, and you should definitely build in time to be able to do that. And then along those same lines, I would caution against spending too much time traveling. I have done trips to Japan where we have a very full itinerary and we're traveling up and down a lot, but for me specifically, I find traveling quite tiring. And particularly if you're living out of a backpack or a suitcase and constantly going to new accommodation and having to adjust to the new place that you're staying each time, it can wear you down and make the holiday a little bit less enjoyable. So what my suggestion is to have like 1 or 2 places and stay there for a longer period of time so that you are able to better explore that area in depth and also just have a slightly more relaxing holiday. That's what we did on this trip that we took now with my son. Because we were taking my son with us, we didn't want to spend tons of time rushing around. So we spent about 5 days at least in each location that we went to, and that was absolutely perfect for us. It gave us a lot of time to settle in, see the sights, have a good time, and then move on to the next location. Even if you aren't planning to spend a whole lot of time traveling, I do suggest that you wear comfortable shoes. Japan has a fantastic public transport system. There are taxis, there are amazing trains, there are bullet trains, trams, buses, you name it. But even with all of those things, you are probably going to spend a significant amount of time walking around art galleries, walking around theme parks, walking around hiking trails, walking around the station, walking around the shops in the city. And I promise you, however fashionable you are wanting to look, by the second day, you are not going to care what your footwear looks like, but you are going to care how it feels on your feet. So make sure that whatever shoes you wear are really comfortable and that you can spend all day walking around in them. Some of the best advice that I've ever been given when I went to go and visit my sister in Tokyo for the first time was from my sister. And she said to me, don't get drawn in to the rush of all of the working people in the city. And I think in any major city in Japan, that is very good advice, because obviously the majority of people that are in the city are living and working there, and they are rushing around trying to get to appointments or get to their work or get home from work or pick up items. And it can feel quite frenetic. You are not there to work and rush around and be stressed. You are there to have a holiday. So don't start walking everywhere at the high pace of the salarymen that are rushing to get to the train. Just keep your cool. And obviously, another thing to keep in mind is while you are keeping your cool, don't get in the way of the people that are living and working in those major cities. It can be incredibly frustrating when someone is just trying to go to work and there's a huge crowd of tourists that are blocking the entire platform or the stairway or something like that. So just be cognizant of what you are doing. If you have big luggage or you are a bigger group, then try not to take up all of the space. And that leads me into my final tip. Tip number 5 is to really try to be courteous and polite in Japan. Being polite and courteous is a big deal in the Japanese culture, and you don't need to go and study every little bit of Japanese culture and turn yourself into a Japanese person, but just don't do things like shout when you are upset or yell at people or behave in a rude manner, even if that is acceptable in your home country and no one would blink an eye. In Japan, it's definitely not. So try to, especially if you are having some kind of problem, like you are lost or your luggage got lost or there's an issue with your hotel booking, try to be polite and reasonable to everyone that you meet, and you will find that the Japanese people respond that way to you just by default because that's the way that they are taught to behave. I would not be too worried about the language barrier. Honestly, you don't have to go and learn Japanese. A lot of the public transport systems and street signs and so on do have some English, and a lot of people do speak a very basic amount of English. And also, what is absolutely fantastic these days is that you can get Google Translate on your phone. That, I think, is maybe my bonus tip, is to make sure that you download the offline version of Japanese translation on Google Translate. And you can do things like take pictures of menus that are in Japanese and Google Translate will translate it for you. Or you can speak to your phone in English and it will give you the Japanese translation, which you can show to a taxi driver. I don't think that the language barrier should put off anyone who is wanting to go to Japan, because it honestly just adds an additional wonderful flavor to visiting a wonderful country. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you would like to see more from me, then you can click on my channel name to see videos that I've made in the past, or you can subscribe to my channel to see videos that I'm going to make in the future.